Welcome everyone to the dance floor, where life lessons are learned through the art of dance. I'm your host, Anna Harsh, and today I have a very special guest with me. It's my husband, and he's going to talk a little bit about dance and technology. Kind of been my sidekick for the last 20-some plus years of helping me do Allegro Dance Company touring shows. And so, Greg, welcome to the dance floor, and introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, Anna. It's definitely great to be here. Everything that I've learned about dance and music that accompanies dance and your performances, I've definitely learned through you. I studied physics when I met you. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in physics, and I got a master's degree in organizational communication from WVU. I've always loved music and history, and it's been a real pleasure to help you research these dances and travel to these different festivals.
We've gone to several places, not only throughout the United States, doing a lot of research, and Greg is definitely a history buff, so that is one of the things that I always pick his brain about, making sure that it's historically correct and, how that history kind of reflects with the dances that I'm trying to research. And then, of course, we've traveled to Italy several times throughout the last decade or so years, researching dances specifically for different regions, and of course introducing him to my family in Italy that still lives there in the southern part of Italy, and had some great opportunities to meet some amazing people throughout the years. But today we're going to be talking about dance and technology, and the first thing we're going to kind of talk about is how our show is put together. What happens before the show, during the show, and after the show. So, Greg, let's talk a little bit about the duties that you might do before our performance, before we take the stage, basically.
Well, it's interesting to me watching the company get ready. They have a myriad of props and costumes and accessories, and everything has to be meticulously laid out. But you generally have extra time. We're there well in advance of our start, and you guys have time to lay out all those things. At most of these festivals, we're the only dance company that performs.
Yeah, that's true.
So the stage is generally set up for a band or whatever. So I have a lot of wait to do, and then we have to get set up and be ready for our music test very quickly. And through the years, we've sort of learned how to do that. Now the show is completely housed on your phone.
Right. And so some of the things that you have to set up in a hurry is maybe a tripod and a small camera to do video so we can record the performances at different festivals. And these are outdoor festivals that we're mostly talking about. So it's a tripod, a camera, and then now we work the whole show through my phone. But you have helped me definitely make the playlist of all the songs in a specific order so it just runs straight through.
Well, I think even before it was popular, we were using our tablet to broadcast the show through Periscope so that we could watch it after, and anyone who couldn't be at that particular performance could see it through the app. So that was an interesting thing to get set up, to have the data, to, like you said, to set up the tripod, to get a good shot, to have that running, and start whatever camera we wanted to also record for our purposes, and then also get our music set up and run our sound check.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with Periscope, it's a free app that you can put on your phone or tablet, and it was a way for not only the dancers' family that couldn't travel with us to all these festivals across the United States, it was a way for their families to see our show live, and also my family in Italy to see our show perform it for various Italian festivals. So Periscope has been a wonderful app. So thank you to those that have done Periscope. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check out that. It's a free app that can record things and broadcast basically live around the world. So we're really excited about using Periscope all the time because it gets us new viewers, I'd say, to Allegro Dance Company. If you're new to us, it's a way to see where we are, what we're doing, what our show is like. Okay, so we've set up the show. We have the tripod, we have the camera, you have my phone, and you've plugged into whatever sound equipment the festival has provided. Okay, what's happening during the show? Because we're performing and on and off stage, and I know you're kind of scrambling sort of back and forth doing some different things.
if we go back into the history when we first started, and I know we'll get into this later, the show was completely run by a cassette, where now it's sort of run by a phone, which gives me a little bit more freedom to, if there's a stoppage after a dance and there's a little more space than what we thought, or there's a problem with a shoe and some dancer is trying to change something out, I have the freedom to play a commercial or move on to something else. It's not a linear progression of the show in the way it used to be when we were stuck with cassette tapes.
Yeah, we definitely will touch back about that, because as many of you might know, the company started in the mid-90s, so we were talking about cassette tapes, and that's what we sort of started with. But during the show, yeah, he's right. If there's a costume mishap, or, a dancer needs a little sip of a water or something like that, like, he has the opportunity. We do these commercials that are pre-recorded, that once again, we'll talk about how that is done, but they're pre-recorded so that we can tell the audience a little bit about maybe one of the dances that are coming up, or a little bit about what we're doing next, where we're going to be. Because many times, if I have to go to the microphone live, I do my best, but I might be out of breath, and it's kind of challenging, and I just don't think that sounds really great. So as a dancer, I try to just stick to dancing and not go to the microphone until the very end of the performance and say thank you to the audience. So we do a lot of things pre-recorded that is really great. So it gives us a chance to get a 30-second break. These aren't big breaks, but they're like 30-second breaks, just enough to change a quick costume or get a drink of water. Okay, the show is running, and you've recorded and you've done these things. Okay, now we're going to talk about after the show. What happens after the show? I know that's a big deal.
Well, not to plug Periscope too much, but one of the things during the show, is I can log on to the Periscope and watch the performance through my phone, so I can see that it's recording exactly what I want it to record, that everybody is in the frame, that sort of stuff, which is impossible for standard recording techniques. It's once I set it up, that's it. I can run out, I can check it, I can make sure it's not getting overheated in the summer sun, but I don't exactly know what is getting recorded, where at least with the Periscope app, I can look at my phone watching the broadcast and see exactly what's going down.
And that's also a great way that we see if people are liking a certain dance. They'll send us little hearts and things through Periscopes, or they'll make a comment like, oh gosh, I really love that dance. So it's another way to keep in touch with the audience live.
Now at the end of the performance, it's a lot easier for me. I thank the sound people who make everything possible. I mean, we work at a bunch of different festivals with some of the best, nicest sound guys and girls that you could want to. I mean, they really help me out. Like I said in my intro, this is not my forte, but they make sure that the show sounds good as long as, we bring the right music to the performance. But it's akin to the beginning of the show. We have a lot of stuff to tear down. There are generally fans or kids that want to talk to the dancers. So we also need to talk to the organizers of the show. So there's a lot going on, because behind us is going to be another performance. We have a set amount of time, 5, maybe 10 minutes tops, to get off the stage, or out of whatever performing area we're in, so that something else can get set up.
Yeah, and that's usually can be chaotic, but we try to be really articulating about how everything goes back into a suitcase or zip bag or case for your technology, your computer system, the phones, the cords. Everything has to be wrapped up and ready to go. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about cassettes, CDs, and phones, and how all of that evolved throughout Allegro Dance Company's history. We're going to take a quick break. And now back to our show. Don't forget, everyone, you can register for classes and workshops with Allegro Dance Company. Just visit our website, allegrodancecompany.net, where all your fitness and dance needs are met. And don't forget, in October, this is Italian American Month. So if you want to take a dance class and learn some traditional dances from Italy, you know where to go, allegrodancecompany.net. Okay, we're back with Greg, and we were talking about dance and technology. So throughout the years, like I said, Allegro's been around since the 90s, the mid-90s, and when Greg first met me, I was running my show through a cassette tapes. Now, for those of you that are too young to know what a cassette tape is, we were at the mercy of how fast or slow the cassette tape would be played through different machines at different festivals. So sometimes they would play really fast and sometimes they would play really slow, which of course as dancers we know that that will affect choreography because you're depending on counts and timing. So Greg, maybe you want to talk a little bit about cassettes and the maybe pros and cons, mostly cons now, but maybe they had some pros then.
Well, yeah, like you said, we've been together doing this for about 20 years, and I remember way back then I had a state-of-the-art tape deck that would actually recognize the stops in between songs, so we could fast forward from one song to another most of the time. But like I briefly mentioned before, it really stuck the show into a linear pattern of, you know, where your only option was to press pause. And at least one of the things that Anna was doing before I even met her was using a double-sided tape deck to build individual shows, you know, almost like the quintessential 90s mixtape of Allegro Dance Company, so that she could at least go from thing to thing to thing. We saw back in those days, people would bring multiple cassette tapes.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Switch between the cassette tapes, not have them rewound. You know,
yeah, so it sucked up a lot of time, and as a performer, that's crucial. You want to get your show on the road, and you want to make sure that the audience is watching and being entertained, but at the end of a show, I remember we would wait before we would have to go on stage because they were rewinding the tape from the previous person that was performing, and then they would give them the tape, and then it was time for my tape to go in. So, and tapes were fragile, you know. I always prayed that they didn't melt or catch on fire, and we have a little story about that I can say in a second, but cassettes were challenging, and like I said, we were at the mercy of the speed at what it played. And I had a live person doing like introductions at the time in the 90s. He was our MC, or she. We had different speakers that came throughout the years that would tell the audience what the dance was about. And then I just used the cassette for music, just for dancing.
That's what those cassette tapes were, plastic, and I've lost many a cassette tape on the dashboard of my 1989 Ford Probe out in the sun, and you know it becomes warped, and that's the end of that Alanis Morissette tape. So,
right, how ironic, right?
Yes, it is very ironic.
Well, yeah, basically, we were at a festival in the early 90s, and we were using cassette tape, and the festival, it was really hot. Of course, most of these festivals are in the summer, and so it's a blazing heat, and they left the sound equipment at the specific festival. I won't say which one, because it's still going on, I believe, today, but not in this capacity. But basically, these whole soundtrack caught on fire, the whole contraption caught on fire because it was in the heat and the sun. It wasn't protected. There was nothing over the sound equipment. So it caught on fire, which meant that Allegro Dance Company did their show, well, a cappella. So the dancers we had tambourines in our hands, you know, to clap and sort of keep the beat. And we did the best, but that was the most interesting show I think we've done in the past, 27 years. But yeah, dancing to nothing, so we had to do it a cappella. So for those of you running festivals, please make sure your sound equipment is covered and under a tent or something to protect it, because that's really important. Okay, let's move on to CDs. Then came CDs.
After tapes obviously became compact discs, and it once the technology to be able to burn music onto a compact disc was available, that's where almost everybody turned to. We are at festivals still now, and we'll see different performers that run their shows through a compact disc. obviously it's a little bit better than a tape. It's a higher sound quality, especially you can remain with that digital sound quality. But you're still at the mercy of the player. They have a tendency to skip. There's nothing worse than a skipping CD while performers are trying to dance.
Yeah, for the dancers, that's a nightmare because you don't know how far it skipped ahead or behind. And so we do our best to keep up with it. But that was one of the cons that we found with using CDs, because if we didn't bring our own CD player that was really stable and, if it wasn't on a stage, because sometimes they would have the sound equipment for some festivals on the stage with us. But if you're dancing and you're moving, that's going to vibrate the compact disc, and the sound equipment, so it's going to shake and skip. So that was the bad thing.
There's one specific show I'd like to mention here. When we went to the University of Pittsburgh in February, I think it was 2007, in our show at the time, we used CDs, and I met a sound guy who was taking care of that particular performance. I think it was for a small group. He downloaded that CD onto a computer program and then was able to run it through that, basically the WAV files or the MP3 files. That was really interesting to me. I hadn't seen anything like that yet, and the way he was able to run the show and take his cues left me free to take some video. I think we have some really great video from that show. We had good audio, and that really planted the seeds of what's the next progression here. What can we do? Obviously, the digital music can live in a digital format, but I can't lug, I don't even think we had a laptop at the time. I can't lug a desktop computer anywhere. We don't own a laptop.
Not quite yet. Yeah. For those of you out there struggling, we feel you, because I've basically built this company off of nothing. We find free programs on the internet. We find free ways that we can do things just because there's not a lot in the budget. Festivals don't pay dance companies an extreme amount of money so that we can survive, to that extent. But we have learned so many tremendous information about these people that have been running sound for years. And yeah, he was great to work with, and we thank them tremendously. And I think he showed you a bunch of different programs and things, how to run that. So it took our show to another level.
Yeah, at the time it was really interesting to get a chance to talk with him, to see exactly how he did it. Now, this was a private performance, more or less, so we weren't under any time pressure. We were able to do different things. I mean, at the time, he even had the technology almost like a digital DJ booth, where Anna was teaching the tarantella to the group, and he was able to slow it down, speed it up. It was really interesting the way they were able to manipulate the music. And I mean, this is 2007. That was really the first time I had seen anything like that.
Yeah, I would say that was just cutting edge at that time. That's just about. But he was very helpful, and that was at the university, and that was inside in one of their theaters, I believe. So we had a little shade, of course. It was a lot cooler, and like you said, we had a little more time that we could set up. Performing inside of a theater is always, a luxury for dancers, especially for Allegro Dance Company. We're at the mercy of outside. So we love performing at festivals, but inside a theater would always be great.
And I remember one of the other things that he talked about was we had these issues with, there are CD minus Rs, there's CD plus Rs, there's rewritable CDs. Some of those do not play in different players. Only certain players will play certain kinds of CDs, and CD minus R is generally what you want to do, the writables that are one time only. But him having a laptop, he had the capabilities to not be constrained by those kinds of CDs. So that was really interesting to me, and definitely something that we kept in the back of our hat for later when we were able to use MP3s in a different way.
Okay, so we are going to move on to phone. This is what we use now, and if you want to just briefly talk about maybe some apps that we use on our phone and how we run the show currently in 2020.
Yeah, it would be no different than almost anyone else listening to their music. We're not using Spotify or iHeartRadio. Just Google Play allows you to put the music in any kind of order you want. Like Anna said, she makes these commercials and introductions to different dances. And so she'll put a playlist together. We would very much like to run the show linearly and know the exact times, but it does give you a little bit of freedom to skip back and forth, to jump around a little bit. There's no chance of it skipping. There's no chance of it slowing down or speeding up unless that's what you want to do through your particular app. It's just so advanced compared to where we started.
Absolutely. It's a long road from cassette tapes, using the phone, and especially for rehearsals, for me, it's so much easier just to bring a phone into a situation rather than a boombox and a cassette player or a CD player with a boombox. That kind of thing was a lot of lugging around. I got a lot of workouts in the past, in the 90s, of bringing all of that equipment. But using the phone today has made it so much easier.
Or even looking for a plug or being tethered to a plug. Now you have a portable speaker that runs off a rechargeable battery. You have a portable phone, obviously a mobile phone, that runs a smartphone that runs off of a lithium-ion battery. So
right.
The middle of a field can be a place where a performance could happen.
Yeah, we've done some performances lately, and I've taught some classes. I take it from school to school to teach classes, and masterclass workshops just runs off of Bluetooth, so which is great. I don't have to worry about electricity when I show up. I could just use my phone and my portable little box there that just is great for a speaker. So we've come a long way, and that's for sure. And I think the life lesson that we've learned throughout dance and technology is we have to have patience, but also ask questions. There's a lot of people that are really great at technology and that have taught us so much throughout the years at different festivals. So kudos to youth sound people out there that are working your tail off. We appreciate your tips and techniques and your advice. Because we need them. This makes our show even better, and it makes your job a little bit easier when we show up and we're ready and prepared with all of the chords that you need or all of the things that you need from us. Okay, we're going to take another quick commercial break, and then when we come back, I think we're going to talk briefly about video editing and music editing, of course, because once our shows are done or before they start, sometimes we have to do a lot of editing, and that has different problems, pros, and cons. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Don't forget, you can go to our website, allegrodancecompany.net, where you can find all the updates about our classes, workshops, and special events, and also our classes on the internet. We have virtual classes and master classes. We've been doing a lot of unique master classes for universities around the country and teaching all about the Italian culture and dance. Remember, some of the dances that Allegro Dance Company performs are over 2,000 years old, are quite unique and very beautiful to watch. So if you want any of that information, or you want to have a workshop maybe for your family, reunion, or maybe you're just tired of being stuck in your home and you guys want to do a little dancing and you want to change it up and learn something about a different culture, contact us, allegrodancecompany.net. Okay, we are back with Gregory Harsh, my husband here, and we're going to talk a little bit about video editing and music editing, because for any dance performance, you dancers out there know how much video editing is important right now, especially during this pandemic. So, Greg, tell us a little bit about video editing. I know we've been working on lots of different programs. What are the best ones you have, and what's your technique to it?
Well, for video editing, the first program I found, because I'm not an Apple user, I don't have any Macs or Apple products, I found a program called Kden Live. Actually, I discovered that through a Linux server. I had an old laptop that I revitalized with a Linux operating system, and Kden Live was one of the video editing softwares that they gave us. That was originally what we used a little bit when we started our documentary.
Right, we have a documentary out called La Danza, Bridging Time Through Dance, and of course it's also available on our website. And yeah, putting a documentary together, I think, was our first big, huge video project.
Yeah, that was really interesting. That we learned a lot of lessons through that process. But just the initial, we had footage from our I think it was in 2010 when we went to Italy. We had that footage that we then were able to digitize, and then I could segregate out clips from that through the Caden Live program, and that program has stayed around. It's been updated. There's actually a Windows version now. I think I have the version 20. That's the program I used to put together the most recent performance that you debuted for the Clarksburg Italian Heritage Festival.
Yeah, for the West Virginia Italian Heritage Festival, along with another festival in Raleigh, North Carolina that's coming up October 12th. I think it's going to premiere online. Everything has been virtual for some of these festivals, so it's been very important for us to put dance video together of our past and recent performances from, long time ago, from past years and up to the last year. I think we had some really great footage of 2019. We toured 15 cities and 4 different states, and we had a planned tour for this year, 2020, but of course it was canceled. But we've been doing touring system kind of thing online now. We're doing a virtual tour. So Allegro is still touring, but we're just doing it on the internet. We're virtually touring. So Greg's been putting together some great video productions of just some this and that's, right? Different performances that we've done. And then I go back through and do voiceovers and tell a little bit about the dance and the stories that these dances have. But Cadence, that's a free program, yes?
Yes. Caden Live is free to download. And like I said, there's a Windows version that I use, and I still have the version on my Linux operating system computer also. Editing for dance is, in my opinion, easier than editing for music. Now, editing for documentary, that's a whole different ballgame.
That's a whole different animal that we can talk about maybe in the next podcast.
Editing for dance, everything centers around the music. A group like Anna's that's choreographed and rehearsed and stays together, I was able to look at different performances from different places and splice them together as long as I could get the music to line up, because as long as everyone is on their count, look at that, it looks perfect. You've got the extension on a leg, it goes from place to place to place.
It was kind of seamless. Yeah, it's pretty cool to watch, a circular folk dance, being rotated, and it would be rotated from one city. And then when we came back around, it was really kind of cool because then Greg put us in a different city and it's all in the same video. So it gives the audience a different perspective that you don't get in a live performance. It was a way to tell the story of, yes, we do tour and we do travel, but the dancers are so precise. I have to kudos to my dancers. I know they're working hard individually right now because we can't rehearse together because of the pandemic. But, when we do come together, they are so well rehearsed. I have to say they work really hard, and counts do matter. We do our best. Some of the dances that we do perform are a little bit of improvisation, but for the most part, I give them counts or when, a change should happen. And Greg's seen the show a billion times, so he knows when those changes are. So it was nice visual cue for you to see when to shift and change.
Yeah, that, like I said, definitely the way the musicality for the dancers plays into how we can do the different cuts and swipes. Now, for your project that you did with Becca.
Oh, right. We did a pause choreography that our brand new dancer, Becca, out of the Pittsburgh area, we never got a chance to rehearse and meet in person. So she sent me a video of her part of the choreography, and I videotaped my part of the choreography, and then Greg put that together, and you found, which was a mistake, but it ended up looking really cool. Can you explain a little bit about that?
With that program, Caden Live, you can do some different effects, and one of the things I wanted to do was to put the two dancers next to each other, and I wound up actually making 4 quadrants and doing them in different quadrants, and then doing words in the other quadrants, that little section of the dance I'm really proud of. And we also had sort of a fading effect. We faded in from, I think it was from her to you, or maybe the opposite. but it gave this ghostly appearance, and you could see where at times they were together because that's what the choreography was, and then they each had different parts, so at times they were apart. I thought it really worked out.
Sometimes mistakes can work out on that end, because I said, oh, leave it. I really liked the effect that it had. And he was like, I didn't mean to do that, but it kind of turned out really cool, this ghostly effect that happened, because it kind of gave the effect of, during this time that we're living through, that, people are far apart and they're always in the back of your mind. And that's kind of what I wanted it to seem like. And this ghostly kind of situation, this fading in and out, really replicated that of what I had in my head. So it kind of worked out. I like that. So let's talk a little bit about music editing. I know I do a lot of the music editing for Allegro Dance Company, and I've been using Audacity, which is, again, another free program. This episode is really filled with all of these free tips, so I hope you guys are really taking notes. Audacity is a great program that we've been using for music editing. And Greg, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about Audio Station, because when we first started doing music editing, it wasn't in English.
Well, yeah, I was going to mention about Caden Live. I shouldn't have to say this, but the version I use is English. When I had a computer, I had a 1994 IBM Aptiva, and it came with a program called Audio Station, and it had a wave editor. Well, I didn't even know what a wave file was back then, but once you learn that that's a sound file, and then that you can cut this sound file up, you can reverse it, you can do these different effects to it, things like that. That was long gone by 99 or whatever. So I was looking for that wave editor from Audio Station, and I found 2 different downloads for free that I could use. One of them was in French, and the other was Italian. Well, I figured Anna's got to understand Italian, but apparently Microsoft Italian's a little different. It was a little different, but I did figure out some things thanks to a little bit of knowledge that I have Italian. I'm trying to become more fluent, and I've been studying Italian. But yeah, we've learned quickly. Through that website, we've learned a little bit about Italian and how to work music editing through that, because we've done that. We did that for years, right? Yeah, I know there's no Italian word for Zoom, or at least Microsoft doesn't know it, because Zoom was there. It was Zoom Avanti, was to zoom in.
To zoom in or zoom forward. Avanti is forward. Yeah.
As far as editing for music, I mentioned that video editing for dance, because you can line up the music exactly, is easier. With music editing, you have to count. And there's really no way around it. You have to count. You have to get your counts right. And I can remember counting with you so many times. We're bobbing our head and we're zooming Avanti to try to get the exact spot, and then you play it over. Can you hear the cut? Can you hear the cut? Can you hear where the beat's different? Can you hear this?
Yeah, I think we really are picky about how things look, how things sound. And remember, we're just a team of 2. The dance company is small. I have between 6 to 12 dancers. It depends on which year. Dancers come in and out, and we hire new dancers all the time. But as far as like all of the backstage work and all the extra work that you don't see, it's just myself and Greg. If it's sewing costumes, it's me. If it's video equipment or music editing, it's just the 2 of us. So we often get stopped and asked, gosh, you guys your team must work so hard. And we just kind of giggle and look at each other, because it's just us. It's just the 2 of us. So we do appreciate all of your compliments that you've given us throughout the years, and we do appreciate all of your help and helpful tips. And if you're out there and you want to work with us and you want to intern for Allegro Dance Company, there's lots of perks to our interns. We've had lots of photographers that have helped us, and they've gotten on magazines and free dance classes and free workouts throughout the years, and we appreciate all of their help. And we do give them a little bit of a stipend, what we can. And they get to travel with us to all of these amazing venues and meet some great artists and musicians and dancers across the country. And so those things, those memories and those life lessons, I don't think we would trade for anything. We do enjoy what we do, and this is not Greg's first job. He doesn't do this for a living, but more of a hobby, and just maybe something that you really enjoy in general.
Yeah, I do enjoy it. I don't mind the criticism. I remember when we were in Steubenville performing an Italian group, I think. All I remember was the food. The food was amazing.
It was for a meeting, I believe.
Yeah, they had all these different Italian regions and food samplings and huge dessert trays. It was the best thing ever. And your brother's band was there, and right. I remember one of the dances you performed was La Furlana from In and Around Venice. And
but the music from
for that dance was a recording of a record player that we had subsequently digitized or whatever.
Now, you're talking about when I first got this book, and there's very few books on Italian folk dance, at least traditional dances in our country, and I have them all. There's very few of them, but I have them all. And this was a lady that gave me a recording. The recording originally that I received was on a cassette tape, but it was on a cassette tape that the recording was from a record.
You could hear the needle drop onto the record in the recording.
It was very old school. You could hear the crackling of the needle being dropped onto the record player. That was recorded onto a cassette tape, which was transferred into a CD that we used. And then eventually we digitized it and we cleaned it up. But the tip was what?
To normalize. We could, once we had the digital form of the song, like whether it was the CD or the MP3 or the WAV, to put it in one of these programs, even as far back as the old audio station days, how to normalize, and we could get that sound. It doesn't necessarily make it better. You can use some sound or some noise reducing effects to try to do that. But what's really important is that certain songs don't come on very loud and other ones are very quiet, because then it's a lot of work to try to adjust the sound so that the audience enjoys the performance. And the last thing you want to do as a sound tech is to detract from the performance.
Right, so you highlight the whole wave and then you hit normalize, and it really does equal out the sound so it sounds smooth and it doesn't take away from the production or your performance. So like I said, if you guys have tips out there, we gladly would take them. And if you want to intern with us, feel free to contact us at allegrodancecompany.net. And we love all of these comments and suggestions.
Yeah, Daryl pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you're going to want to normalize this," and it just made perfect sense, because you had some really good recordings that were at a good level, but that one clearly was not. But once we were able to get that down, I think it's a lot better.
And I've talked about this in the past episodes, but, getting these performances together takes a lot of work. Obviously, you've heard a little bit today about, what technically it takes with dance and technology and music and video. But besides all of that, all of the dances are researched in Italy. And I've gone to Italy several times. I've had Greg beside me throughout my journey. And we've traveled to several cities in Italy from top to bottom, from the top of the boot all the way to the bottom of the toe. And hopefully in the future we plan on going to some of the islands and enjoying that and researching some more. But just take a little bit of time when you get the chance to see Allegro Dance Company perform again. Think about all of the work that we talked about today that goes into the performance. But before that, we have to travel to Italy, learn these dances so that we can research them, know why they performed these dances and where they came from, and all of those difficult, challenging details that it takes. I have to find teachers, do a lot of digging and research. So anyway, we enjoy talking about this stuff. And like I said, if you want to contact us for more information, visit allegrodancecompany.net, and we take all of those tips and we turn them back into our show and make them amazing. Greg, thanks for sharing your knowledge with all of us today. I'm glad that you got a chance to chat with me. I know you're always busy with work in general, but I'm glad you got a chance to share some of your tips with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really enjoy what you do, and I enjoy contributing to that in a positive way. And like you said, if somebody has better ideas, I would love to hear them. All we want to do is get better.
Absolutely. We want to grow with this company, and definitely through our technology for sure. That's not something that we are fortunate to be, exact at, but we do our best. If you love this podcast and you enjoy it so much, don't forget to rate and review it on your podcast listening apps, wherever you get your podcasts, and share it with your friends and family. Go ahead and share, click, like, all of those great things. And don't forget, you've been listening to The Dance Floor, where life lessons are learned through the art of dance. I'm your host, Anna Harsh, and until next time, keep moving on the dance floor.